Welcome to Interior Analysis. I'm Evan Westman.
I'm your boy, the illustrious Jelani Kelly.
And today we're talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. So this is the first one. This is a series that I've loved for a while. Like, I got into these in middle school, and they were like my favorite thing in middle school. Probably rivaled by Lord of the Rings, but I guess it's fair to say I have a nostalgic bias for them. But on rewatching this, I wouldn't say this one's perfect, but it holds up. So this was your first time seeing it, Jelani. So like, what was like your overall reaction to it?
First half's kind of slow. Second half definitely picked up. I don't know if it needed to be 2 hours long, but it had some interesting parts. There were some parts I missed because I watched it at 4 o'clock in the morning today.
Okay.
But I didn't know about the blood thing, and I was like, well, that seems like it might be a pretty important plot element, but whatever. And then they needed Turner's blood for the thing. I was like, well, I kind of missed that, but sure, let's go with that. Where the heck they got that from, how they knew they needed dude's blood, but sure.
Okay. Because I do want to like get you on the right page with how the curse works before we move forward, because it is a little confusing the first couple, at least it was confusing for me the first couple times I saw it. So like, how do you understand it? And then like I'll explain anything that like you missed or misinterpreted.
They took gold from the chest and they put a curse on them. And they were like, oh no, we gotta put the gold back. And they tried to put the gold back, but there were pieces missing, and they were cursed, and they needed to find the piece.
So that's about half of it. So basically, like the pirates of the Black Pearl, like they took those coins which are cursed, they spent them all, and then realized that they there was a curse attached to it that they didn't believe in initially, and like I don't know how much you picked up on this, but Barbara was
They didn't die.
yeah, so they're immortal, but they're also like essentially zombies. Like they
Yeah.
can't feel anything, so it's immortality, but it's immortality at too high of a price, basically.
Have you played God of War? You probably haven't.
I have not.
The new God of War is the villain is like that. I'm not gonna say anything further than that, but yeah, continue.
Okay,
That's just a comparison.
no, that's fair. I mean, I don't know what that is, but that might be a good comp for people who do know that.
You don't know
What?
what God of War is? You haven't.
No, I know what it is. I know of it. I just don't know anything
Evan.
about it. I am not much of a gamer. I'm sorry. I pretty much max out at like Smash Bros.
Boy.
And Madden. So
Boy.
yeah, that's not a good way to compare things for
Damn it.
me. But for other people, that's yeah. Um, so basically, they want to reverse the curse, and the way to do that is they have to get all the gold pieces back using their blood as like I guess kind of a sacrifice. Like if they put their blood on the coins and return them to the chest, then the curse is lifted. But they need to get all of them back.
Mm-hmm. Why did it have to be the blood of a Turner?
That I think is the hardest thing to pick up on the first time. So Bootstrap Bill Turner was a crew member of the Black Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty quick moment and like a quiet scene, but it is explained that like the crew killed him because they mutinied Jack, and he was kind of not okay with that. So the crew killed him after that, but he was like already involved in the curse. They'd already like taken the gold.
Mm-hmm.
So they found out that this curse was a thing, but they couldn't actually get his blood.
Mm-hmm. Because they drowned him.
Yes. So for one thing, his coin's still out there, that's the opening scene, is Elizabeth getting the coin.
Mm-hmm.
And from Will. Because the deal was that Bootstrap Bill sent the coin to Will as like a gift or inheritance or something.
Mm-hmm.
But they needed his blood. So that's the significance of that part when Elizabeth is first captured. and she says her name is Turner, they think it's her blood they need, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, it's reversed at like just the right time so that Barbossa and some of the other pirates do actually die. There's the part where Jack steals the one coin so that he is immortal for a short time.
Yeah.
So he can kind of have a little control over it.
I was gonna say something about that. When I saw that, I gasped, like, I gasped out loud. I was like, oh my god, this whole time. Oh, that's a good twist. He's been a skeleton this whole time. And then I saw him flipping the coin around through his fingers. I was like, oh, well, I guess that makes sense, but it would have been a cool twist.
Yeah, so the thing is, I may have missed some of what you said there, but like he's not actually cursed the whole time.
Yeah.
He's only cursed in like the last, I think in terms of like time frame of the movie, it's like an hour. I think it's maybe like 10 minutes of the actual runtime, where, because he's like, there's the part he's like throwing the coins back in and he keeps one.
Yeah.
So at that point, he becomes part of it. He like, in the final scene, it's like really quick. He like cuts his hand so that there's blood on the coin and tosses it to Will just before Will drops his own coin in. So it's a little more complicated than I think it needed to be. I also like, I wanted to hear your reaction to it because I watched this movie originally in like a very bad way to see it. I saw like the first half of it, and then I saw all of Dead Man's Chest on a plane, which is already a little problematic in terms of actually understanding what's happening. And then I saw the second half of this, so it took a while for me to actually figure it out. Yeah, like the amount that you comprehended it, I think is expected. It's pretty obvious like what's connected to what, but exactly how is a little bit hard to piece out on the first time.
I was just gonna say some of my reactions. Like, the cuts can get really confusing for action, like a Marvel movie does. For example, the fight that Jack and Will have in the stable, like that entire sword fight, I was like, bro, I don't know who's where and who's winning or where they are in the stable. This is ridiculous. Like, there were so many cuts in that fight, and then they have a long, like a wide shot of them standing on, like, I don't know what it was, like a wheel of some sort, and they were
the wagon. Yeah,
and they were like clashing. I was like, okay, this is better. And then they cut back to the shaky stuff, and I'm like, bro, what is this? This isn't Jason Bourne, man. Like, and Jason Bourne was after this, wasn't it?
I think the first Bourne was a year before, and the second one was a year after.
All right.
Yeah, I don't actually get Jason Bourne vibes from this. I've never found the action hard to follow, but maybe like if I went back and actually watched it with that eye. I've also seen this movie like 6 times, so I know what's happening pretty well. And I've like played video game versions of that fight, so I like
the Lego version.
Yes. I had, I don't know if I still have that game, but I know I had it for a while and played it a lot as in like middle school. I'm very familiar with that fight scene, so I can see how it could have been confusing.
It pretty much was only that fight scene. I didn't really pay attention that closely to the other ones. The effects were hella dated with the skeletons, but it gets a pass because it was 2003. And, you know, animating faces in such a way could not have been that easy back then. I think Spider-Man 2002 kind of got away with it because, you know, you weren't seeing Spidey's face. So yeah. I think they were good. They might have been good for the time. Definitely.
Yeah, I think it was fine for the time. I can tell you that the effects in the next two are like some of the best I've ever seen. Like
Dutchman.
Yes. I don't know how much we want to say about the next one, but like the effects in that are freaking insane. Like they're so good, even 14 years later. So like this did not get the budget that it maybe deserved in that sense.
I was gonna ask which one the ones with the Flying Dutchman or the one with the Flying Dutchman was, but you told me it was the next two, because his face is something I remembered. Like, I've never seen the movies. I think I might have seen parts of them, but I just remember his face because my dad used to watch these, and I just remember old Squid Face, and I was like, bro, that's a crazy design. Pretty freaky. I ain't never seen nothing like that in my life.
Yeah, I am excited to talk about like the effects and that character individually when we get to Dead Man's Chest. But
Speaking of the next one, this did get me excited to see the ones after this, because I do want to see the Dutchman. Yeah, I want to see what the other ones are about. The Pirates of the Pearl made some really, actually surprisingly smart decisions. Like, you expect villains, like, the movie was kind of campy to me in parts, but they made surprisingly good decisions. Like, my favorite part with them was the take a walk scene, like where they were walking underwater and then climbed up on the British ships and did a whole stealth mission on them. That was pretty freaking cool.
yeah,
I don't know how they stayed underwater like that. Like, they had ankle weights around them or something, but that was really dope. Like, it was just them, like normal them walking underwater, and then like them glimmering in the moonlight under the water, climbing the ropes. Yeah, that was really cool.
yeah, there were a few effect shots that I don't know if they were quite like it cool in concept. In practice, I don't know if they quite pulled it off, but like in answer to your question of how could they sink, I don't know like the science of whether like bones sink in water, but I know that like in the Lego video game anyway, when you played as like an undead person, like for other characters you could swim.
Oh, you would sink? It'd be that sinking character.
Yeah, if
Got
you
it.
were a skeleton, you could like I think with other ones you had to like dive, and then with them you could just walk on the surface.
Got it.
And like also I think you didn't drown, like I think you had a limited time with other people. I don't know if that's any real evidence to anything, but
That's similar. Like, I don't know if you ever played Lego Batman, the first one. That's very similar to Killer Croc, because he was the sinking character. He could walk under the water. Everybody else had to float. It was Killer Croc, and I think Robin had a suit, a scuba suit, diving suit, whatever, that allowed him to walk under the water like Killer Croc. I don't think there was diving in that, but yeah. Yeah, I understand that reference.
yeah, I didn't I think I played that like maybe twice at a friend's house or something, but
So good. All the Lego Batman ones are so good. I didn't like 3 that much. Really, any of the DC's. Lego Batman 2 is the one that introduced them talking. Like, I was like, I saw the trailer
oh,
for it,
it
and I was
was.
like, bro.
When was that? Because they don't talk in Lego Pirates, and I think that was like 2011.
Let me see, hang on. Because that was definitely one of my favorites. You know it was serious when I saw a trailer for this game. It was the next year, 2012, June 19th.
Okay, that sounds right, because I know the Lego Lord of the Rings characters, they talk.
But I saw them talking. I was like, bro.
Well, okay, what's your tangent? Because what's your take on that?
Them talking?
Yes,
I love it. I thought it made the stories better. I did not like the stories as much when they didn't. They were just mumbling and stuff, and I was like, bro, why?
Okay, I see that because some of the grunts are a little annoying.
Yes.
I thought it was weird when they started talking though. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Probably because have you played much before the talking then? Like the Star Wars ones?
Yeah,
and...
well, Lego Star Wars was the first one I got, and then I think I had both of the Indiana Jones ones at one point. I had the Harry Potter one for a very brief time, but that one sucked. I don't. I think I got it for like 2 months, and then I was like, no, this is stupid. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't huge on like the way they emoted, I guess is the best word for it in the other ones, but then they started talking, and I was like, oh, I want the emoting back.
Yeah, I remember you'd never be able to fly in any of the games before Lego Batman 2, and then they brought Superman in on like a fire rescue mission, and I was like, bro, you can fly in this game. And then they let you fly outside and explore the world and everything. Bro, they're one of the best Lego games. But let's get back to Pirates.
Yeah.
Back to Pirates.
Yeah, okay, so did you have any other reactions?
I did not, and I never do. Like the two Timon, I always call them the Timon and Pumbaa characters. Is probably many different names for them.
There are names for those specific characters, but
Yeah.
elaborate.
The one with the missing eye and his partner, the kind of chubby one. I never enjoy these characters in any freaking movie. And they were in this, and I was like, bro, why? Like, I never find them funny, ever. Only time I found... Oh, another point. The only time I found myself laughing at any point in this movie was Jack. Because and the more I paid attention to what he was doing, like, somebody else could be speaking and he's doing something completely different. Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow was pretty consistently funny. And I think without him, oddly enough, I don't know if it's odd, but I think the movie would not have done as well without Jack Sparrow or Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, either or. Because then the movie kind of, I think, would have been pretty generic. Yeah, those were the only times, like, me seeing Johnny Depp's little gestures. Like, at the end, there was a point where he had, like, they were surrounded, and Will's hat's feather got in his mouth, and he spit it out. And then, while somebody was talking, I think the Commodore told them to put the guns down, and he was pointing at them, taunting them, and I was like, bro...
Yeah, Johnny Depp does make the movie.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that.
Yeah, well, people are, without getting too much into the later ones, people's relationship with Jack Sparrow and Johnny Depp as a result has become a bit complicated by what's done with him in some, not all, of the later movies. But I think it's fair to say that, like, without Johnny Depp's performance, it wouldn't be. I think there's more to it than Johnny Depp. I think there's some, like, core character stuff that makes him work. They were thinking about casting a lot of other people. I was reading through some stuff about that yesterday, and, like, I think some of the other people they were looking into, I want to say Christopher Walken was one.
Oh my gosh.
Matthew McConaughey was another. Hugh
God.
Jackman. I think Bill Murray and Robin Williams and maybe Michael Keaton, and, like, just all of those, I was like, I don't even know what that would look like.
I can see Hugh Jackman in it. It'd be weird, but I can see him more than the others.
Well, he plays, I didn't see it, but he was Captain Hook in that live-action Peter Pan movie from a few years ago. So, but I heard that wasn't great, so maybe that's the closest we can get to, like, seeing his Jack Sparrow.
Or seeing him as a pirate at all.
Yeah, but, like, I can't think, like, what does a Hugh Jackman Jack Sparrow look like? It's so hard to divorce the character from Johnny Depp.
I imagine more or less the same of what Johnny Depp was doing, like the whole being drunk all the time thing. Was he actually, well, not the actor, but was the character actually drunk all the time, or was he just weird from the heat thing?
I think it's a bit of both. Like,
he was only on the island for 3 days.
Yeah, so there is a bit of ambiguity there, because he's like, it's not as if he was driven crazy by that island.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also, like, that story is the one that Gibbs tells, and it's not the last time he is, like, yeah, sea turtles. There's maybe truth to the myth, but it's a little hard to tell how much. The origin of it is not clear. I'm gonna say that, like, he's mostly weird, but yes, like, he's probably, I don't know if Johnny Depp was drunk or not playing this. It would not surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, clearly Jack has a drinking problem, so.
Was it his first mate, Gibbs or Gibbs? Gibbs?
Gibbs.
Yeah.
RG.
Yeah, when he was telling I didn't ever hear his name in the movie, but when you wrote in the notes, I was like, oh, that character. I'm sure his name was said in the movie. I just don't remember anybody's
It's very
name
brief
being said. But that was another part I think I laughed at with the when he was telling Jack's supposed story about the sea turtles, and Will was like, where'd he get the rope for the turtles? And then that was never explained after that, because Jack was there.
No, it is in the next shot. Jack's standing there, and he goes, human hair.
Oh yeah, from his back.
And Gibbs is like, told you.
It was like you could have used your long hair for that. You didn't have to use it from your back, bro. Yeah, that was another part. I think my last note was, who is the movie's target audience? Because this is definitely not tailored to kids, but it has the whole, Disney brand on it. There's killing in this, and it's scary imagery with the skeletons and drinking and all the cutting hands and stuff and blood and all this other, like, who's supposed to be watching this movie? Because some of this stuff, like I said, it can't be, so it cannot be for like grown adults. And there's a lot of like physical comedy in this, like as if it's tailored towards kids. Like, people keep getting hit in the back of their damn heads, bro. Like, why? They keep getting snuck up from behind. I think it started with Jack in the stable with Will's friend. Jack got hit in the head with a glass bottle and he was knocked out. And then Will was knocked out by somebody in the street when the Pearl Pirates were raiding. And then Will knocked Jack out with the oar. And it's like, why do people keep getting hit in the back of the head and then stand there for a minute like, oh, I've been hit, and then fall? Like, bro, is that supposed to be fun? Who's supposed to be watching this movie?
Yeah, it's kind of a Looney Tunes
right
style, like,
exactly.
Like, you can almost see the like spiral going
Right.
up from their head.
The stars going around them when they cut to them being knocked out. Like, who's supposed to be watching this? You say you watched this in middle school, but when you said that I guess kind of made more sense, that whole rant. But can you tell me who the target audience is actually supposed to be? Like,
I'm really glad you asked this question, because I hadn't really thought about this, but I think the actual answer might be sort of everyone, but also, like, I think maybe they didn't know, because I'm gonna have to fact check this, but I think this was the first PG-13 movie that was like released by Disney. And when I say by Disney, I mean like with a Disney logo, because they have like a couple subsidiaries like
Right.
Touchstone that does a little more like, not what you would think of as like a Disney movie. Like, I think like The Sixth Sense is them, maybe.
really?
And I'm not positive about that, but I think so. And then like they have like R-rated releases, but it's not like
Disney.
it's not part of the Disney brand, but like this is part of the Disney brand.
Yeah.
So I think
that's
they
what
were kind of
confused me.
breaking new ground in that sense.
The entire time I was thinking, y'all made Snow White and Cinderella. Like, why are these pirates killing people?
Yeah, so I think it was very much a litmus test in that sense. So the answer, I think, is a little bit of like, I don't know if they really knew who they were going for, but it was like a Disneyfied version of an adult movie, kind of, I think is what they're going for. Because obviously it's a little, like you were saying, it's more like, not that Disney hasn't, like, Peter Pan is kind of a pirate movie, and they've done that. There's piracy elements, I'm gonna say, in like Little Mermaid or something. So it's not like it's not like they couldn't make a Disney pirate movie, but they're doing a more, I don't really want to say realistic, but a take on pirates that is supposed to be more like the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, like, they're also making a pretty sanitized version of it, where like you can't kill anyone. The pillaging is pretty light in terms of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And like it's sort of kid friendly, but trying to almost pretend like it's edgy, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they did kill people, though. You say you can't kill anyone.
There are people who die, but the majority of the violence in the movie is toward the pirates who can't be killed, I would say.
But the whole British ship part, Devin, they were getting slaughtered. When they first got on the ship, they slit a dude's throat.
Oh, yeah.
They cut away from it, but they slit a dude's throat, and they were like stabbing people in the back, and then the dude rang the bell, and then you pan up, and the pirate saw him, and he just stabbed him in the back. Like, Evan, what you mean? There was definitely blatant. They were cutting away from it to not show it, but there was blatant killing in this. And then dude at the end, the Barbosa at the end, he was shot in the heart, and he opened his chest, and you saw the blood running down his, like, Evan, what do you mean?
That is, yeah. I'm gonna say you won that. But it's an interesting thing to look at because now that you're mentioning it, I'm actually really surprised it flew as well as it did.
Right.
And it's so like it's actually vitally important, I think, to where we are today in terms of like kind of the entire landscape of the movie business. Because I think if this didn't work, then Disney couldn't have like that slightly less kid friendly side of their brand. And
Like
like I
Marvel.
think it's fair to say, yeah, they probably wouldn't have got Marvel. They probably wouldn't have got Star Wars. And I mean, the sequels to this and Curse of the Black Pearl individually were very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I mean, it's a conversation for another time, but I think what Disney has done with their PG-13 content has changed the way we view that rating.
Right.
So this is like a vitally important movie, I think, in terms of the entire landscape of, I think mostly marketing, how like in terms of age groups, who things are marketed to.
Let me ask you this: Are the other movies like this? Like as far as killing, like it's kind of teetering the line between back and forth between kid friendly and not, or the other movies like from Fantastic Four 1 to Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, or Shrek to Shrek 2, where it was a PG-13 movie, but then, you know, once they saw how many kids saw it, they made this next one PG.
I'm gonna say it's mostly the same tone. If anything, it scales up in intensity in the sequels,
cool.
but not a lot, I would say.
Okay, good.
But yeah, that's an important distinction. And since you brought up Shrek, I meant to mention this earlier, but the writers of this were actually the same people who wrote, I think, the first two Shrek movies.
Nice.
And they did some other stuff. And I was looking through their IMDb profiles. Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio are the writers. Their careers are kind of insane. Like if you take just these two franchises, Shrek and Pirates, both of them are properties that are like based on really bare bones IP. Like we talked about when we did Shrek, how little there is from that book.
Yeah.
And this is based on a ride.
Yeah.
And like I haven't been on the ride in a while.
That's something I knew about the movie going in. It was based on a Disney ride.
Right, but like I was looking through some of, because I don't remember the ride well at all, and there's basically nothing. Like there are images and like lines and some small elements from the ride, but mostly it's an original story.
Mm-hmm.
Like they took like the barest premise of the ride and turned it into something, and the fact that they did that with Shrek and this, both things that were supposed to flop, and both of which turned out to be possibly the two biggest franchises of the 2000s. That's insane.
From
I
the
think.
opposite companies, DreamWorks and Disney, kind of like
Yeah.
compete. Like, all right, I'm done over here, so I'm going over to these folks. It's like moving from Marvel to DC.
Well, but we've
Many
seen that
writers
too
have done
with
it. Yep.
Joss Whedon.
Yep. Many have done it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's so much loyalty in that sense, but they've also done other things for them, like, and more so kids projects. Like they both did the original Aladdin. They did Treasure Planet also. That one went a little more under the radar. And then I don't know if you know this one, The Road to El Dorado.
Nope. Oh wait, yeah, with Miguel and I forgot other dude's name. Tulio and Chell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, so those are all the same writing team, and like
Wow.
I feel like I didn't know. I knew that, but before looking it up, I knew that they had done El Dorado and these, and you can kind of like it once you know that. I feel like you can kind of feel it, like the same sort of voice in both of them, in like the way that they have like the characters interact, which we'll get to in a minute here. But like these two, they haven't done a lot recently in terms of work, but I'm just blown away by their ability to do what they did twice, and I just can't believe they're not still valued more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, I can believe that because they worked on Lone Ranger, which tanked. I don't know if you remember that.
I never saw it.
I did. So it came out 2013, which was 2 years after the fourth Pirates movie. And I remember seeing the trailer for Lone Ranger, and it showed like from the guys who brought you Pirates, and I was like, I have to see this because I was like 14, and like
Mm-hmm.
that was still like my favorite thing. I was like, this is gonna be the best thing ever, and then it tanked after 3 weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw it. It was okay, but I know financially it did awful. So I think now their names are a little bit
Not good.
maybe tainted, and that was like a huge budget thing. Same writers, same director, and Johnny Depp starring. The director's Gore Verbinski, for reference. But it just did so bad. But I don't know. I am still really impressed by their ability to like take basically nothing and turn it into something so iconic with two different things in like different ways. I think it's really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Was that all of your reactions?
Yeah, Timon and Pumbaa, I didn't really expand on this, but I just never find these characters funny. I did find Timon and Pumbaa in The Lion King funny, but other than them, it's just kind of lost on me.
Yeah, so the characters you're talking about, their actual names, I don't believe they're said in this movie, but they might be said later. Pintel is the short, bald guy, and then the other guy is Rigetti, or Rigetti, I don't know how to say it. The guy with the eye. I didn't know this until years later, but he's in the British version of The Office, and he plays, I think it's supposed to be the equivalent of Dwight
Oh my god.
in that one. Yeah, I've only seen like a couple episodes of that, but I know that's who he is. I actually kind of enjoyed them, but and still do to an extent. Like a couple of my siblings and I would quote them all the time. Like not just them, but like this. I think they have some fun lines. But I can see, like, especially if you've seen that trope of like comedy duos a bunch of times, and like I know there are other ones of those. Like for example, Timon and Pumbaa themselves, I don't find that funny. I think maybe I did as a kid, but I also didn't watch Lion King that much as a kid.
Mm.
But then there's those two in Hercules. I don't know their names.
Oh, the red one and the blue one?
Yeah, I don't know what they're called, but like they're clearly the Timon and Pumbaa ripoff for that movie.
Is it one of them voiced
And
by Danny DeVito? Or am
maybe,
I thinking of the
I don't
wrong
know.
ones? I don't know. I've never seen Hercules either.
Yeah, those two are. I like them, but I get that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I guess now we'll get into the other characters. So, my main approach with this, and what I think this movie specifically out of the trilogy does the best, is crafting each character around the theme. And, like, that's a writing technique that I've seen a number of people talk about, and I don't know if I've ever seen this used as an example of it, but I think this is maybe one of the best examples of it. Crafting each character to have a different take on the theme. So, the theme as I see it in this is like the thematic question is what makes a person good or bad? And there's kind of two facets to this. At least the way they show it here is like one is kind of selfishness versus sacrifice. And then the other one is kind of your take on the law. And when I say the law, I'm expanding that to mean the law of the land and also the pirate code. Because I think like people's relationships to that are kind of there are parallels to be drawn between them in this. And I think they like the theme is developed pretty strongly. So I kind of want to look at each character through that lens, but we can talk about other things with them as we go. So we'll start off with Jack. From where I sit, his take on like the theme of what makes someone good or bad is, to him, I think it's irrelevant. His main thing is to be an opportunist.
Mm-hmm.
And like he goes into every situation, it seems like, just he doesn't necessarily have like a long-term plan, but he's looking to benefit himself in all cases. But an important thing with it, I think, is he's not above screwing other people over, but he's not going to do it just to do it. And at several points, he's like actually trying to help people out. And it kind of ends up being his biggest asset, is that he is always kind of in a position, or often in a position, where he has what other people need, and he's fully willing to help them out, but there has to be like
Some return for him.
yeah, for sure. I'm excited to talk about that in the later ones too, but as it comes up here, he's useful to basically everyone at some point. First it's Will, and like Will breaks him out of jail, and then later he's able to leverage both Norrington and Barbosa kind of at the same time, I think. Like he makes himself valuable to people.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that's like the core character construction that makes him so iconic. He just walks such a thin line between being an ally and an enemy to everyone, and being like, let me put it this way. Do you think Jack is a good guy or a good guy? I hope my inflection came across well enough that you can like tell what I'm trying to distinguish there.
Yeah, I think he's both. I never once saw him as the opposite or even neutral. It didn't ever seem at any point like he was going to betray anybody. Or sure, they tried to make it seem like he's for himself, but he's pretty much helping the main characters.
But I would say he's not doing it at expense to himself. Like he never once has to sacrifice anything to get what he wants.
Sure.
Or for someone else to get what they want. We'll talk about that more when we get to Dead Man's Chest, but I think it's interesting that your answer to that is a solid yes. Because I would kind of say it's a little hard to tell.
Mm.
I know we've talked about him a bit, but did you have anything else you want to say with him, and just in general?
Not really. I mean, I just thought he was a cool character overall, and like I said, without him, this movie would have done horribly, and I would have never watched it. Because I pretty much don't like the other characters in this movie, maybe Barbosa, because he makes for an interesting villain.
I would concur with that. I didn't used to feel that way. I used to pretty much like every character in this, but rewatching it like a couple weeks ago, I was kind of like, yeah, everyone else is a little bit generic.
Yeah.
And I think the performances help. Like, I think every actor is pretty much bringing their A game to this.
You think? I feel like they could have plugged anybody into Will and Elizabeth, and they would have been the exact same.
I kind of disagree with that. I think that Will and Elizabeth are... Mostly Will, I think, is a pretty generically constructed character. Like, there's nothing in how he is written that makes him specific, but I think Orlando Bloom did... I'm not going to say that his performance was, like, anything amazing, but I think he did well enough with it that, like...
You said A-game, Evan.
A-game is probably an overstatement. But, like, he did well enough that, like, you get the sense that it's, like, he doesn't feel like a caricature.
Mm.
He feels relatively fleshed out. But I will agree that he's not an interesting character.
I did not feel that way. I did feel like he was a caricature. Like, not over the top, but just so bland. Like, ridiculously bland. It felt the same way with Elizabeth. Like, I had seen this character... both of these characters, I don't know from where, but so many times before that it's just like, all right, get back to Jack. Like, get back to Jack or the Skeleton Pirates, bro. Like, and not Timon and Pumbaa, just Barbosa. But, like, ugh, I don't like them. I don't like them. And forget the rest of the British people. Like the Commodore and the father and... Oh, God.
Yeah, I think I forget who said it, but I was like, when I rewatched it a couple weeks ago, I was watching it with the rest of my family, and I remember one of them saying, like, yeah, like Governor Swan is like probably the worst part of this movie. I don't think he's a poorly thought out character, but like, you're never excited when he's in a scene.
Like, he had a whole scene with the skeleton hand. Like, bro, why are they spending... This movie is 2 hours. They thought they needed this? Like, who's laughing at this?
I've always thought that was kind of a fun scene.
God damn it, Evan.
I'm not gonna defend it as like it. I'm not gonna act like it's objectively good or anything, but I have enjoyed that scene almost every time I've seen it.
Oh my god.
I think he was well cast also. In terms of Will, like I agree he's generic, which I think is it's too bad because I think he's got like the most work done with him in terms of theme.
An arc.
If everyone else in the movie, I think basically everyone else in the movie you can kind of categorize as either being a pirate or a person of the law. Even like the only person who maybe you can't is Elizabeth,
I
but
was about to say that. That's what I was
but
thinking.
even she is like, she's the governor's daughter. She's kind of an authority figure in that sense. So
Mm-hmm.
really Will is the person who's best set up to kind of split the two.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, it seems like his take on like what makes someone good or bad is good people obey the law. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple points where he basically says that, like almost to the letter. And I don't know if you picked up on this, but like there's a bit of a struggle with him finding out that his father was a pirate. And now he's trying to like reconcile the idea that he has in his head of like his father as this upstanding guy. He can't really dispute the fact that like yeah, his father was a pirate.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end he's sort of reconciled that as like being a good person isn't so much about what you are, it's more what you do. Because through a lot of the movie it seems like he's kind of defending himself as like I am a good guy. Like I just am. And there's nothing really to prove that to the contrary, but he's not really backing it up until
Mm-hmm.
the end of the movie when he stops pretending to like be an upstanding citizen and like embraces his pirate side kind of by freeing Jack. But he's also like fully believing like this is what I should do. So
Mm.
at the end I feel like his stance is good people are people who make sacrifices is his take on it.
I either saw him as being a pirate in the end, or doing the even more cliche thing of saying, "No, I'm not a pirate, and I'm not a blacksmith. I'm my own man." Like, I would have been more pissed off if he said anything along the lines of that. I would have not watched the other movies. I would have been done with the Pirates franchise as a whole if he did anything in the area of going his own path, so to speak.
I can see that. I'm interested to hear what you'll think of him in the other ones. I don't know if you're gonna like warm up to him more, but there is more work that's done with him, is what I'll say. And like I kind of see him having like the strongest arc in this, but his arc is not complete, I'll say, at the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything else about him?
Nope, he's just boring.
Fair enough. Prior to rewatching this, I might have disagreed with you, but now I think I'm pretty much on board with that. Like, yeah, it's disappointing how
Mm-hmm.
how generic he feels. Okay, so the next one is Elizabeth, who I feel like is probably the second most like interesting slash well crafted character behind Jack, maybe tied with Barbosa, but she seems to have the most agency, I think, out of anyone. Maybe not the most, but at least tied for the most. I know you were saying you think both of them, like her and Will, are pretty generic. I think she's less generic than him. I agree there's more that could have been done, for sure. But, like, there are a lot of points in this movie where she's making choices that, like, I hate using the term character development, but, like, there is character development there.
You think she kind of just seems like, to me, she just seems like the type that wants to reject where she comes from and be strong and independent and all that stuff. I didn't like her character either. Like, I've seen her character before too in many other Disney movies, mainly Disney princess movies. Like, what separates her from a Disney princess? Think about it.
I'm gonna push back on that a little bit. I see where you're coming from with that, but I'm gonna say remember that this is 2003. I don't know if like later characters were modeled off her so much, but this is before like we've had kind of that new wave of Disney princesses with like the two in Frozen, Moana, and Rapunzel and Tangled. Like this is pre all of that, so it's a bit of a different context in that sense.
Got it.
I don't really feel like she's generic in well,
Mm.
generic is not inaccurate, but like she has a lot of influence on the plot, and like the other characters, she has a pretty strong take on the theme. Like it's not one that changes really, but she's basically advocating that like a person's value or like goodness is determined by what they do rather than who they are. Right from the beginning, standing up for Jack because of what he's done rather than what he is, and saying like even if he is a pirate, he did just save me. And like it doesn't even feel like she feels indebted to him when she's saying that. It's like on a matter of principle more than anything else. At least that's what I got from it.
Mm.
Her take on the theme is pretty static throughout. Like there's no real change to it. But I think it feels a little bit dynamic because there are some points where she has a bit of opportunism like Jack does. It's not quite the same, but there are a couple points where like when she's deceiving Jack on the island into like and like getting him drunk so that she can
Burn the supplies.
alert the other
Yeah.
ship. Like she clearly is okay with like I'm going to say moral ambiguity of like this is not something that like lawful people would condone, but she's totally on board with it. And then later when she accepts Norrington's proposal to convince him to raid the cave and save Will, like that's a very opportunistic action.
Mm-hmm.
I thought like they fleshed out her character pretty well in this.
I don't know where it feels like I've seen this type of character before though. Besides the Disney movies, like maybe I'm thinking of movies that were made after this one, but I don't know. She just didn't interest me. Like I said, most of the characters didn't.
I can see that. I again, I'm gonna be interested to hear what you think of her in the next couple movies. Because again, there's more that's done with her as with Will. Personally, I think she's a lot better constructed than Will is. Like she at least she gets more to do in this one,
Mm-hmm.
and not that she doesn't have anything to do in the other ones, but I would say if any movie is her movie, it's this one.
Mm.
We have four other characters to go through, but they're pretty small. So the next one I'm going to do is Norrington. His take on the theme seems, it's pretty clear cut. Like the law is good, and that's about it. The only real complication to that at all is at the end when he like basically lets Jack go and like doesn't pressure Elizabeth into marrying him after like everything that happens with freeing Jack and everything.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of a sacrifice that he's making. So
I-
it's not like unlawful,
I'm
but it is a little more like he's not using his authority
I'm
as much as
I'm
he
glad
could.
he didn't, because it looked like they were setting up for it at one point. I'm glad they didn't. When he said, I'd rather Elizabeth die than be in the hands of a pirate, I was like, oh god, he's going to be a villain by the end. But then he wasn't, and I was like, oh, cool. I mean, he was still that character that got, maybe the term is cuckolded. There's probably a better term, but that's the term that's coming to mind. At the end, where like he was never supposed to be the one that ended up with the female character. I'm not gonna call Elizabeth the love interest because she was much like you said, she was her own character. But
Yeah, they kind of sideline like any sort of love interest plot line. Like I think at first glance it feels like it's
Yeah.
there, but as I was watching it this time, I was like, they take like every opportunity to not make her choose between Will and Norrington. Like,
mm-hmm.
and it was never surprising to me that she chose Will at the end, but this time watching it, I was like, it kind of is. Like, there's never a moment where I feel like they try to develop that, like, either she doesn't like Norrington or that like Will is better for her in some way. It just kind of happens at the
Mm-hmm.
end. And I don't mind that it does that. Like, but it does kind of weaken her and Will's relationship because there's sort of nothing there, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely not.
And it's weird because I never felt that way when I watched it when I was younger, but now I really feel no chemistry between the two of them.
Was this the movie where they like hated each other on the set, behind the scenes or something? Am I
I
thinking
don't think so.
there's probably several movies like that, but I
I
thought
feel
that
like
this
I've
might have
heard
been one of
of
them.
a couple, but I'm pretty sure this is not one of them.
Okay,
We should look
but
into that because I know I've heard of that though. But yeah, in terms of Norrington though, I'm not going to push back on you saying that he's an uninteresting character because yeah, I can see how you see him as kind of generic. But
Norrington, more like Borington.
all right, I won't argue with that. But what I do like about this is that he's not like a full-on villain. And it really does like it's really in keeping with the theme that like there are people who are in villainous roles, I'm going to say.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess it's relatively fair to call Barbosa the villain, but he's not like a full-on villain at every point. Like there are some times when you want his plans to work and
Right.
because it'll help like the characters that you're supposed to care about.
Hmm.
And I love that it does that where it's like there are villains and heroes kind of on both sides of it. There are good and bad people of the law and there are good and bad pirates because it
Hmm.
really does a good job of like bringing across that theme of like complicating who's good and who's bad. Because
Hmm.
what they could have done, and what I think a lot of other movies do, is either they do, I'm going to use this term not politically, but I'm going to say the conservative approach of like they make the pirates bad and the law people good, or they do the like I guess like inversion of the trope thing where the pirates are good and the law people are bad, but
Hmm.
I feel like we've seen that a lot.
Yep.
I think that's not even a subversion anymore.
Hmm.
But they don't do either of those things with this. It's like neither one is intrinsically good or bad. It's kind of irrelevant what side you're on as to how we should feel about you as a character. And I really like that it does that. I think the success of this with that theme partly paved the way for Game of Thrones to be so successful. And Game of Thrones was already written before this came out, but like Game of Thrones takes that idea and turns it up to about a 16. So I think part of why it maybe got greenlit was because there was such a good reception of these movies that they don't deal a ton in that theme, but they do it enough that it's like prominent. Did you have anything else with Norrington?
Nope.
Okay. So then Barbosa, as I said, I think if there's a villain in this, it's him. But as you were saying, I think he is easily the second most enjoyable character in this. Like
Yep.
his and Jack's dynamic is a lot of fun,
Hmm.
and like him on his own is a lot of fun. I
Hmm.
think.
He sure is. His yellow eyes freak me out, but I guess that was the point.
Yeah, in terms of theme, from where I saw it, I think he doesn't really consider himself to be a good person,
Hmm.
but he also, like I was saying earlier, like in terms of the law in his book that's the code, but he doesn't even really have any respect for that.
Hmm.
Like he basically is, he says they're basically guidelines and he uses that to justify basically doing what he wants.
He uses like a monkey's paw approach.
What's that?
Like you didn't specify when it like, or monkey's paw slash genie approach where you wish for something to be done and it's done, but there's a catch to it that you didn't consider. So like when he says Elizabeth goes free, and he's like, yeah, okay, she's going free, but you didn't specify when and where. It's like there's a catch to whatever your thing with him is. Like with Elizabeth in the beginning, when she says leave this port, and he was like, okay, cool, you're coming with us. You should look into that. There's like a whole subreddit dedicated to monkey's paw, which is like people trying to beat the case of the catch, and somebody always finds a catch. Like, they'd be like, I want the monkey's paw to kill itself. And it's like, granted, but there's more than one monkey's paw, or something like that, you know?
Hmm. I've never heard of that concept.
Yeah. Have you never read the short story? I think it was actually titled The Monkey's Paw.
I'm 80% sure that I haven't, and if I have, I must have forgotten.
Okay. Because it was about some dude wishing his son back to money, and then, like, his son back to life. No, I got it. Okay, I think the first wish was for money, but it was like a couple, and their son died in a factory accident, and they got money from that. And it was like, oh, we have the money, but our son's dead. So then the guy wishes his son back to life, and then it turns into like a horror movie because there's like knocking at the door, and it's obviously the son, but there would be something wrong with him. So then the third wish is to wish the son away, and then the monkey's paw goes away after that.
Okay, so it's basically like be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I have seen that concept in other stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's a theme that comes up. I've just never heard that term. Although do you know if it has anything to do with because Jordan Peele's production company, I'm pretty sure it's his, is called Monkey Paw Productions. Yeah. So
I don't know if it has, like, I haven't seen themes from his movies like that, the be careful what you wish for thing. But
I haven't either. At least, I mean, he only has 2 out at the moment.
Yeah. But from what I've seen, I don't know why it's called that just yet. Okay. Maybe it's a connected universe.
Maybe it is. I mean, it's a little early to tell with him, I guess, but maybe we'll see more from that. I think that's a good point to bring up with Barbossa, though. Kind of the way I saw those actions was a little more like it's kind of what distinguishes him from Jack is that they're both going after what they want and not pretending to not.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between them is that Jack is willing to help people and isn't really out to get anyone, whereas Barbossa's like aggressively out to get people. Like he's almost more about like, I don't care if I win, I just want you to lose. I don't know if it really ends up being his downfall, but it's almost limiting to him. Like he's worse at getting what he wants, I think, because he takes such an aggressively selfish approach.
Yeah.
Even with no change of heart, he would be better at getting what he wants if he was willing to like negotiate a little better.
Right.
He's always been one of my favorites. Also, Jeffrey Rush just commits so hard to his performance that like I think that helps a lot. He's a little bit of like a corny generic pirate, but he also like they're not poking fun at it either. Like they're having fun with it, but they're not ashamed of it.
Kind of like Green Goblin from the first Spider-Man movie.
Yes, but this actually works.
All right, Evan. I didn't like the first Spider-Man movie either, but you gotta admit, Willem Dafoe was pretty funny as Green Goblin, Evan. He was campy, super campy.
I'm not going to concede to him being fun, but I'll agree that he brings it just as much in his performance.
Yes. Okay, fine. That's fair.
I'll agree to that.
That's fair. Man, you might hate that movie more than me.
It's possible. I think that's to be determined.
Did we do those yet? We got to do those.
We did not. I think we're going to have to at some point. Did you have anything else for Barbossa?
Nope. Arrgh.
Yeah. Governor Swan is next. I think it's pretty obvious how he's affiliated. Like he's the governor, so he's a law-abiding guy. Like clearly, I guess if we want to go with like the traditional alignment scale, he's like a lawful good, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like if you put everyone on the chart, that's where he'd fall. And like his take on it seems to be like goodness is determined by your proximity to the law and even to power in a way. Like even before like Will does anything that he does, he sees Norrington as like a better man than Will because Norrington is like he's a military figure and Will's just kind of a guy.
Yeah.
He very much ascribes to like status and like respects that. And like I don't want to say that he has an arc, but at the end he does like, pretty blatantly say like a pirate can do a good thing. I don't know his exact line. And it's a little I don't know if you could get away with him saying it as blatantly as he does today. I think it might I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit when it happened because it was a little too on the nose, I thought. But
He also said it in like a wise old man kind of way.
kind of. I don't remember the exact wording.
That's why. Because he said it like a wise old man.
Fair enough, yeah.
I don't remember what he said either.
Yeah, but it's, like, I don't know if it's fair to say that he has a full arc, but he comes around to it a little bit at the end. In an objective sense, he has a different take on the theme at the end than he does at the beginning. I guess in a literal sense, he has an arc. Like we were saying, I don't think he's a very interesting character, but I think his function in the story it works. Like, it's good that he's there, I guess. I think there's a better character that could have done the same thing, but he is necessary for the story to work. So, he wasn't wasted. Yeah, so then our last character, this should be pretty quick, is Gibbs. So he doesn't really have a whole lot to do with the themes, except that at the end, he and the crew of the Black Pearl decide to come back and save Jack from his hanging, and his justification is that the code is like a looser thing, that it's guidelines and not rules. So he's using the same logic as Barbossa does, but he's using it to justify breaking the code to, like, help someone rather than doing it to screw someone over. So it's a useful beat for developing the theme, as like it's basically like confirming the story's take on the theme, that like it's not what rules you follow or even that you follow them, it's like when you decide to break them. Basically neither law system is totally valid is kind of the point of that, I think. And also, like, sort of an implicit way that he contributes to it is that, like, he's a generally decent guy who's also technically a pirate. So, like, he kind of enforces the theme in that way, that, like, there are good pirates and bad people of the law, and, there's good and bad of both sides. And he kind of, like, his presence implicitly sort of proves that. Did you have anything else on him? There's not a lot that he does. So.
Not really. I didn't have anything to say on him.
Yeah, so, like, just to wrap up that theme, I think this is a good model to go off of if you're, like, creating minor characters. Like, I might try using this. The past couple weeks when I've been preparing for this, I've also been doing that with, like, crafting some characters for a story that I'm writing and trying to fit them around a couple themes and have them all be a different take on it. I don't think you should, like, try to cut and paste from this necessarily, but I think it's a very comprehensive model of, like, each character does something different with each theme and each one has a distinct perspective on it. It maybe is a little bit blatant and the theme doesn't come across as organically as it could, but if you're looking to, like, have a model to teach yourself how to do this, I think this is maybe the best one out there. I kind of think it's the biggest triumph of this movie. So, sort of to wrap up with the characters, I want to pose this as a question. And I don't have a definitive answer to it, but I have, like, thoughts, but I want to hear yours first. So, who do you think is the protagonist of... not of the whole series. I know you haven't seen it, but, like, just of this movie.
Will.
You think Will?
He has an arc. He's the only one that has an arc. Yeah, it's him. Plus, they need his blood and all that other main protagonist type stuff. I mean, I definitely think it's more or less Will, Jack, and Elizabeth as, like, the ensemble of the trio of main characters, but if I had to pick one, it's Will.
I think that's fair. I think if I were asked this question in context of, like, a class about making characters where we're studying storytelling, like, traditionally, I would say Will also, because he is the only one of the three of them who actually does have a tangible change start to end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, those three characters, I think, it really is split between them. And before this, I kind of had a theory that this was Elizabeth's movie, the second one is Jack's movie, and the third one is Will's. And we can get into that more when we talk about the other three, but I don't know if I necessarily believe that this is Elizabeth's movie anymore.
Mm.
But like, I wouldn't say that it's not hers either. Like, as I was saying, like, I think she has the most agency out of any character.
Right.
Probably tied with Jack, but like, I don't think he has more than her. If you count up the amount of like active decisions that are made that are like significant, I think she may have the most, or at least like the biggest ones. I don't really have any evidence to back this up, but I kind of feel like we're seeing the movie more through her eyes than anyone else's. They go to several different points of view. The technical term for this would be like it's an omnipotent third person point of view or something like that, where it doesn't limit how much we see.
Yeah.
I feel like if there's anyone we're meant to like have the same view as, it's her.
Yeah.
Kind of. Maybe that's also because she is the first character we see. That maybe is part of it. But then like Jack is kind of, he's kind of the head of the marketing campaign for these movies.
Yeah.
He's always like, I think they put him at the front of the poster. So in that sense, I think you're maybe meant to think it's him, but in terms of like his role, I don't know that in this one you can call him the protagonist.
Mm-hmm. There are several series where the poster boy is not the main character. Like, for example, Mortal Kombat, Scorpion is the poster boy of the series, but one of the other characters, Liu Kang, is the main character. The creator himself said Liu Kang is the main character. So there are several. I'm only thinking of fighting games because I play a lot of those, but there are several other series and franchises where the poster person is not necessarily the protagonist.
I think that's fair to say, but there is, statistically, it's still rare that you walk into a movie if you've seen the trailer or a poster and you don't know who the main character is going to be.
That's true, yeah.
Like, not to say that there aren't other exceptions, but, like, for the most part, you pretty much know.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a recent exception to that is Knives Out, but that's maybe not a terribly fair comparison to this. But I like that it does the ensemble thing. I think maybe it bit off a little more than it can chew. Not with this specific movie. I don't want to say they set the bar low for themselves, but like they balanced it out well. But again, I think this kind of paved the way for there to be bigger stories. Like, I'm going to say mostly with the MCU. Like, if you had said to someone, we're going to have a movie where there are 6 main characters in 2002, they would have been like, well, you can try, we're not going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because of the success of these movies, when they probably pitched Avengers to the studio, they were like, okay, like, it's going to be hard, you need to make it work, but we're not going to say no because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Marvel can credit these movies for letting them have that green light to an extent.
I mean, that's all Disney anyway.
Well, it wasn't at first, but yeah, now it is.
Be like, thanks, me, for
Yeah.
giving me such a great movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to try to leave my opinion on Disney out of this, but like, I mean, like I was saying earlier, like it's a miracle that this movie worked. And I hadn't really thought of this before I was doing this analysis, but it's hard to think where we would be without it.
Mm.
I mean, maybe something else could have come along and done it, but, and I won't make too much of a thing out of this, but like the next, like 2004, there was Troy, which is written by the same guys who did Game of Thrones, and that didn't do great, but it kind of tried to do the same thing as this, where there wasn't really a clear single protagonist, and they kind of balanced it out between an ensemble. I thought it was pretty good, but it was not nearly as successful or well received.
Oh, yes.
I think it's maybe fair to say that there might not have been another thing that came along and did what this did. One last topic here, and I'm calling this just like including the element of fun, because I have always enjoyed watching these movies, and I don't as much now as I used to, but it's rare for me. I prefer to appreciate rather than to enjoy something, I guess. And I was looking at it and wondering, like, why is there anything that they did, or is it just me? And I've kind of concluded that it's just me, and maybe it's nostalgia, maybe it's like, I think it's partly the score, because the score for this is amazing.
Oh.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer, absolutely. So
Hans
technically,
Zimmer did this?
So technically, he's not credited for this one. I believe he helped out Klaus Badlet doing this, and he does the score for the next three.
He does some great stuff, bro. Amazing.
Yeah, so
Man of Steel.
Part of why I love these, I think, is because, like, after I saw this, I was like, I gotta find out who did the score. And so I found Klaus Badlet, who hasn't done much else. I mean, he's done other things, but not nearly as much as Hans Zimmer. And then, so this got me so into Hans Zimmer. And, like, for a few years after, I would go see something like, I saw Man of Steel because Hans Zimmer did the score.
Bro.
Like, I wasn't really that interested in it, but I saw it was a Hans Zimmer score. I was like, I'm there.
Man of Steel, bro.
Yeah. And, I mean, I wasn't huge on that movie, but he did such a good job on that score.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yes, dude, the score in that's one of my favorite scores. Maybe not anymore,
we
but at the time.
We gotta talk about that in the music episode, dude.
We do.
Those are two of my. I don't ever listen to movie soundtracks, but there are certain songs like the theme from Amazing Spider-Man 2 and I think it was it Flight or something like that from Man of Steel.
What are you going to do if you aren't saving the world is the one that I like best from that. But I think Flight is another big one from that.
Evan. We gotta talk about it, bro.
Yeah. Hans Zimmer is just like, if you have Hans Zimmer, your movie's automatically going to be better. Not good, but better, because he did Pearl Harbor, which was not good, but it was better because he was on it.
Yeah.
The thing about it too is, have you ever seen Gladiator with Russell Crowe?
No.
Okay. Well, if you go listen to the score for Gladiator, which it came out 2000, you can really hear Hans Zimmer like workshopping the Pirates music in that. You can hear like he's kind of trying to do the same thing, but he hasn't quite gotten it yet. And then you get to Pirates and it's like crushed it. Like, this is it. And we'll talk about score again when we do the other two, because he does some more interesting things with, especially in the third one, he mixes the score up a bit for that. But I think this, like, the way the score is incorporated into this movie, I think is a huge part of how I enjoy it. Like, that first sword fight with Will and Jack, I know you were like criticizing it a bit earlier, and that's probably valid, but like, I just get so amped every time like you hear like the score with like the swords tinging, like that sound design, just like, maybe it's nostalgia, but like I think endorphins are set off in my brain when that like whenever that happens. It's just hits something in me.
That's what the Man of Steel and Amazing Spider-Man 2 things do to me, bro. Every time I hear that intro song when he's diving into the city.
Oh, dude, I had that as my alarm for so long. I was like, this is the best thing to wake me up.
Bro. I also love Electro's theme. Much more electronic, but I kind of like electronic music, so I loved it.
Yeah, it's Pharrell doing the voice on that, right? I know he helped out with the score. Yeah, Pharrell Williams.
Really?
I'm pretty sure it's him. I know he was involved in that score.
Did not know that. Quick fun fact I forgot to mention at the beginning. Jack's intro is something I had to animate or make an animatic out of when I was an animation major in Drexel. I had to know that scene pretty much in and out. When he was introduced, I was like, oh, wait. I remember doing this so many times over and hearing the same music and trying to get it right so many times over. I forgot what class it was for. Yeah, I remember his intros when he's on the boat and the boat is sinking, and then he goes in the port with the ship sinking and walks on the dock. That's where the scene ended for me.
What kind of animation did you have to do? Was it all hand-drawn or was it 3D?
I think it was hand-drawn animatic at first. Like, it's not fully animated. It's just weirdly moving parts to show what's supposed to move. and then I had to make it 3D. It wasn't like fully
fully
like
rendered.
ridiculous. Yeah, it was just like I made Jack like a circle. He had a circular head and like a cylindrical body and cylindrical arms. It was very, very bare bones, like stick figure level type stuff for even the 3D. Yeah, I remember doing that so many times. That might have been our final, I think. But yeah, that's a little fun fact.
Just to wrap up on like why I think maybe this is fun for me is like, and I don't know if this is a good writing technique to take away, but I think it's because like the fun of this movie doesn't feel forced. Like I don't know if you've noticed this or if you agree with this, but I feel like in mostly kids movies now, like there's always sort of a ride moment where they like have a scene where they're trying to like imitate a roller coaster.
Really?
Maybe a ride moment isn't the best way to describe it, but that's how I think of it. The only one that's coming to mind for me right now is Inside Out when like they're flying through the tube and it's pretty quick. And that's not the best example of it, but it's like the movie trying to tell us, I feel like, that we're having fun and I never am. Maybe that's just my reaction to it, but like I never feel like it's forced like that when I'm watching this. It's just like it's just kind of intrinsically fun. And like there are other things that do it too. Baby Drivers like that and Scott Pilgrim and kind of all of Edgar Wright, but like Spider-Verse I felt like was effortlessly just fun. It's like it's not even trying, it's not like this is the fun moment. It's just like existing in this world is just fun in itself.
Yeah.
Maybe I just like people swinging off things cuz
With the ropes and all that.
yeah, cuz Tarzan's always been one of my favorites too. So maybe it's, and there's a lot of swinging in this movie and obviously swinging's pretty intrinsic to Spider-Man, so maybe that just hits something for me. But the fun of this movie is not forced, and I think maybe that's why I jam with it a little better than other things, and why it maybe like ages better for me than other things that I thought were fun when I was younger. I don't want to say that like it's a hardcore like technique that works, but I think it's something that I'm going to try to use because I never think about like making things entertaining when I'm writing them. That's never where I start, or it's usually not. These are fun. I probably shouldn't try to overanalyze it too much, but I think maybe that's why. I mean, maybe it's also that everyone seemed like they enjoyed working on this. Like Johnny Depp and Jeffrey Rush, they seem like they're having so much fun when they're acting in this, which unfortunately you can't say for all of them. I think for the original three you can, but in the later ones, like, they're a little checked out. I think at least Johnny Depp seems a little checked out. Any final thoughts? I mean, we've certainly been here long enough with this, but...
Nah, I'm good. I got everything out.
Okay. Just some quick wrap-up things then. Our next 2 episodes, we're going to do Hancock, which is on Netflix now. It's, well, if you want to pitch that, go ahead.
Call me an asshole. One more time.
You're an asshole. Boom.
That's the pitch.
Oh, I have seen that part.
That's the pitch.
Yeah, so that's next. That's on Netflix. And then we're going to do Dead Man's Chest, and we're going to do At World's End too. That's a little further down the line, but we are going to finish out this series.
Avatar: The Last Airbender coming soon whenever Evan's done watching, bro. Look forward to that in the future.
That just came onto Netflix today. I think today.
I think it was
maybe
yesterday.
I don't know.
But I just saw it today on Netflix.
Yeah. But I mean, in either case, I haven't started it, so that will be coming. I don't want to promise soon, but it's coming.
Well, you better binge it, because I assure you, ooh, it's a good one.
Oh no, I'm excited too. Like, all I've seen is the crappy Shyamalan version, but
no,
which I know.
Evan.
I'm sorry to invoke those words, but that's all I know of it. Just full disclosure.
You're gonna feel, even if you saw the Shyamalan movie first, when you watch the actual show, you're gonna feel disrespected that he could ever come up with something even remotely close to what the movie was. You said you kind of liked the movie, right?
I liked it when I was 11. I haven't seen it since. I also knew nothing about, like, I didn't even know there was a series it was based on. I just saw the trailer and I was like, oh, that looks cool. and then saw it and I was like, that was cool, and like didn't think much of it.
You're gonna love the show. Maybe I'm hyping it up too much. I gotta let you decide.
Well, you're hardly the only person to have hyped it up for me. So, like,
okay.
because I mean, everyone all over Twitter the past couple days has been like, "Oh my God, Airbender's back!" or whatever. Like, I don't know how you abbreviate it. ATLA. I think it's
yes.
Everyone's like, "Atla's back," and
yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype around it as is. But yeah, that's coming eventually. Yeah, otherwise, our logo is originally by Isabella Akhtarshinas. You can like us on Facebook, subscribe to us, and review on iTunes. And you can subscribe, I think, most places you listen to podcasts. Spotify, I'm pretty sure you can do that. You can send questions, comments, suggestions, requests to intanalysis18@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at intanalysis18. I'm on Twitter at Davos Watson. And where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Jelani T. Kelly, JELANITKELLY. I'm on Instagram at Based Phoenix, BASED, and then Phoenix, like the city in Arizona. I'm on Twitch. I stream every day except Fridays at Based Phoenix. And make sure you buy a copy of Descended, because that's out now. My first published book at 22, Descended Awakening. Superhero book. Go ahead and grab yourselves a copy of a kid's version coming soon, like very soon, and an audiobook soon to be released as well.
Yeah. We'll put links to all of those that are available in the show notes, and yeah, you can find those. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace out.